Prabhat Shikotra, who is the BAM UK and Ireland Strategy Lead, Tier 1 main contractor, turning over something in the order of 3.5 billion.
Those that are actually successful are the ones that outperform the market on the bottom line.
Yeah.
So the profitability. But I would love to see at a much earlier stage in education, people really talking about how we make this world a better place.
Yeah.
Artificial intelligence will have a big role to play.
Hello and welcome to the Own the Build podcast with me, Paul Hemming, episode 273, and we are back to the Leadership Series. As you know, the Leadership Series has been appearing in your feed once a month throughout 2026, and it will be the last show of each month in your usual Monday slot. As I've mentioned before, I'm thoroughly enjoying doing this exclusive series featuring the UK's top directors. The theme is spotlighting a career and a journey to senior management, for those with ambitions of reaching senior management, and also to kind of spotlight for other senior managers what world-class leadership management looks like in UK construction in 2026, or UK and Ireland construction, or just in construction generally. So on that note, I am delighted to welcome our next guest, who is Prabhat Shikotra, who is the BAM UK and Ireland Strategy Lead. Everyone will know BAM as a top 20 UK Tier 1 main contractor, turning over something in the order of 3.5 billion. And if you listen to the very first leadership episode with Mark Sheridan, who I've grown very fond of, I asked Mark, could you introduce me to someone? And he said, there is only one man that I want to introduce you to. So you are here, Prabhat. Welcome to the show, mate. How are you?
Thank you, Paul. Thank you for having me on. Yeah, very well, thanks.
The pleasure is all mine. I know this probably makes me quite a sad man, but this is like, I just thoroughly enjoy talking to people like yourself about your journey into construction and what you're doing. So kind of on that note, just how did you alight on construction as the career for you?
I think it starts in childhood. You know, this fascination with building stuff. Lego and constructing things, pulling things together, wood, Lego, bricks, whatever it is in front of you, and you make something and you create something. And you're proud of it. At the end of the day, you're proud of your own creation. I think that's where it starts, that imagination, that creativity. And at the time, I was quite young, but I found out that my uncle from mum's side, he's an architect.
Okay.
And I wondered what that was.
This is a show for quantity surveyors. You don't want to be an architect.
No, I know. Well, I was going to say, actually, I know this is a very sort of a commercial podcast, and so it's great to be on here talking about business strategy, because I think the two are completely interlinked.
100%.
You know, there is no going away from, if you want to do construction really well, you've got to have a very strong commercial part of your business that really truly understands business strategy and how you go out into the market and offer your products and services for profit.
100%.
But yeah, so for my journey started at a very young age, being fascinated by buildings. And as I was growing older and older, and through the education and university and all that sort of stuff, I became more and more engaged in design and, you know, the craftsmanship that goes into building lasting structures.
Yeah.
And it was really fascinating for me. The whole process was really fascinating, from design to construction. So I started out in architectural practice and then moved into construction. It was kind of a seamless transition almost, joining BAM. And
first role was with BAM?
No, first role was in architectural practice. Okay. So, you know, moving through different practices, different roles. So from drawing boards, you know, hand drawing plans and elevations and sections and stuff that people would use out on site to build a building, to 3D modeling, which was a leap from 2D CAD. And that was fascinating in itself, that you could create visualizations in 3 dimensions, show that to the customer, immerse them in that 3D world so they can get an understanding of what their space will be like. That went into producing photorealistic renderings and all that sort of stuff. Really quite creative stuff, quite cutting edge stuff at the time. This is early 2000s. So, you know, it's about the time when Apple was getting into their flow with the iPhone, and technology was really starting to move on. And then I was working on some projects, and I bumped into a company called HBG Construction at the time. And they were a fascinating company for me. They were really strong on quality, and the people were amazing. The people we were working with were incredible. And I had a conversation with the regional director at the time of what was then known as the Southeast region. And they'd just been acquired by HBG.
Okay.
Yeah, by HBG. They were Kyle Stewart.
Okay.
Originally. He said, would you ever consider, the other side of, or the dark side as he called it, the dark side of construction? I said, absolutely. I want to get more involved and more engaged in how these buildings come to life, how people engage with design teams and really go through the process of developing technical design, technical detail that is buildable on site. And some of the challenges around buildability at the time, using the latest materials and sustainability was starting to make its play into the market as well, that a lot of clients were asking for more sustainable solutions. And so, I made the transition into BAM.
To what? Technical role, like a design manager?
Design management, planning. I actually came in through the sort of the 3D modeling, 4D modeling part, which is planning and applying time to 3D models. So you can actually see the build sequence as it was being constructed, which took me back to my childhood when I would build things physically with Lego, and then now I was doing it in this digital world and getting really immersed in it.
And it was kind of, what's interesting to me about what you've just said is, through the interviews on this show, and people are probably bored of me saying this, but I do find it quite fascinating, is what you quite often hear, and this is generalizing, is kind of one of two reasons to be in construction. And the first one being, my dad or a family member was in construction, and therefore I'm in construction.
Naturally fell into it.
Right. Yeah. And the other one, which is my story, is complete mistake, fell into it. And it is what it is, right?
Yeah.
I'm personally very happy to be in construction. But I've often talked on this show about what is happening between childhood and adulthood to turn people away from construction, because your story of, I was a kid playing with Lego, building stuff, enjoying it, is the story of many children, right?
Yeah.
They enjoy building stuff, and there's something you really see there, but kind of you see the drop off from that to, I don't want to work in construction, it's horrible and dirty, et cetera, et cetera. But that wasn't your experience, which is why I'm interested.
Yeah.
Like that kind of persisted for you. You wanted to carry on into the space.
Yeah, for sure. I think me personally, it's about the way I use my imagination and how I can use my imagination in my career. I think there is a point, you're right, in time. And I think it's the education process that kind of drills into you.
Not construction.
Not construction, because it is dirty. It's not a profession as such.
How does that make you feel, though? Because I agree, but like...
Oh, it's gutting. I mean, I've got two quite young daughters at the moment, 7 and 12 years old. And I would love to see them working in this industry. The abundance of opportunity to make a real impact, to improve people's lives. The stuff that we build.
We all live in,
we all
use.
We use it day to day. This is the environment that we are using day in, day out. We have to immerse ourselves in this reality. I'd love to see them working in that and shaping that future.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, the career paths to get there are not as clear as some of the more traditional routes, like accountancy or law or banking or whatever it may be.
Even architect, right?
Even architecture, yeah. Architecture itself is still not out there as an attractive career for people to follow, because it's a long, very long process, rightly so. But also there isn't that emphasis in school that design, creativity, the arts really engages people's thinking in a different way. A lot of the subjects are around maths, engineering. Engineering itself is a fascinating subject, and the mix of engineering, architecture coming together in construction, I love. I think
you really do. I can see it.
We've got some of the best engineers in the world in this country, and I love seeing these creations come together. And I engage with engineers in our business all the time, and the way people think is so different, so vastly different.
Yeah.
It's incredible.
Yeah.
But I would love to see at a much earlier stage in education, people really talking about how we make this world a better place.
Yeah.
in the UK, let's just start with the UK. Let's just start with London. How do we make London a better place to live and work? The environment that we're creating, how do we make it more sustainable? How do we make it more appealing, more attractive? Really somewhere that people want to live and work and play and
why is that?
Enjoy.
Why is that not an attractive proposition to kind of school leavers? You'd think, God, I can make an impact on the world. I can like build a stadium. Like these are the stories that we never ever tell, and it really does grind my gears. That you like the projects I've worked on Battersea Power Station. I've worked on 20 Fenchurch Street. I've worked on the Shard. I've worked on schools and like colleges. Like there's so many cities I can go to where you think I worked on that project, and there's something tangible that you take away. You think, oh, great.
I've left a lasting legacy.
Yeah, that story doesn't get told to your children, right? Like it's not passing through. Anyway, it's.
We take time out to visit schools, to engage with young kids in schools, and as part of our social value, on all of the projects that we deliver, we really do engage with our communities. And when we engage with a lot of these youngsters in this dialogue around what construction actually is all about, you can see the eyes light up. That, oh my God, this is amazing. I want to do this. And it's carrying that on, carrying that conversation on. And I think at some point it drops because it comes to exam time. You've got to hit a certain number of grades. You then got to start picking university choices.
And the route
in. And I think actually we probably need to pay more attention to the parents that influence the kids' decisions about where they want to go.
Because I had a young 20-something project manager on the show probably a couple of years ago now, and she was kind of doing all of this work in her local community to try and spotlight a career in construction. And the way she described it was that she would go to career days and she would kind of showcase herself, her career, and the possibilities of construction. The kids would be like, oh, wow, that sounds really flexible. I get to build that. I get to be involved in this and leave a lasting footprint. And the parents, she said it was actually the parents who were like, no, construction is not for you. And she was like, it's not, the kids aren't the problem, it's actually the adults. But anyway, we digress. I just think that there's, and it's not at all to kind of downplay the work, the social value and the work that you do project to project. It's kind of more, I would always talk about construction. I've got mates in banking. I've got mates, and you kind of just think, construction. But it's how we present ourselves and how we feel about the work that we do, and it shouldn't be
absolutely
rubbish and dirt. It's the opposite. It's something which everyone listening to this show, everyone in construction will reflect on one, if not multiple projects, as I just have, and being like, worked on that job, amazing, look at it. So like, how do we get that? How do we flip the narrative? And that's the story which appeals to the kid doing the Lego. Anyway, I do digress massively.
It's a huge challenge.
It is, isn't it? But I just think there's something in how we individually feel about ourselves that if we shift that narrative, how we actually present it to mates or whoever else could shift it. Anyway, so I digress dramatically, but I always digress onto that because it bothers me. So
anyway, carry on the story about the career journey.
Exactly.
So, I started out in BAM in early 2000s.
Which was HBG at the time.
HBG, and then it got acquired by BAM.
When did it get acquired by BAM? Because so
it's almost a week or two after I joined. So it was 2008.
2008. Because this is the piece that I'm trying to map together in my mind. Is we both worked on the project NLMBB in Cambridge. Amazing project. It was a pleasure to be part of. And I can't remember because it must have been 2008, 9. I started in 2007, and it was like one of those seminal jobs in your career where you think, oh my God, I managed that one. And I felt good about myself, and it kind of took me, maybe I went to Project Surveyor there, I can't remember. But I was struggling to remember whether we were in contract with HBG or BAM, but I think it was HBG.
Probably HBG.
Okay.
Yeah, probably.
And so what was your in there in planning?
Planning, sort of 4D modeling visualization, explaining to the client how we're going to build this enormous building, this new research laboratory for molecular biology.
It's a mouthful, isn't it?
It's a mouthful, but my God, what a building.
Unbelievable
the scale,
building. Yeah.
the materials,
The products,
product, what they do in that building is mind blowing. Some of the most dangerous viruses in the world contained in that building, and the security and the services around it that need to, enable that building to run. So I joined in that sort of role to bring to life how we're going to actually build this enormous building full of really complex services. It's got interstitial floors where you've got a floor and then a sort of
back.
And a floor in between with all the services in it, kind of hanging off. It's incredible.
It's actually just kind of contemplating that project, and like for me at the time, it was more like, can I manage this big job on my own, right? But
exactly.
Actually, it was it's the building where they discovered DNA. Have I made?
Yeah, that's right.
It's this is a amazing building. And like it's the new version of that. It's like the product selection is amazing. All those things you just described. So the Prabhat who kind of loves Lego and visualize, that must have kind of been a dream project for you.
It's a dream project, absolutely. I mean, and when you engaging with a client and you're taking him through the process and the story of how we're going to construct your project for you and bring your vision to life, you can see their eyes light up and they're inspired by that, and using that cutting edge technology as it was at the time. Now it's kind of, you can do it on an iPad. It's dead easy stuff now. But back then, there was a whole process that we had to go through in that planning department where it was quite complex, actually. And we had to engage with a specialist software developer based in Belgium just to be able to make this connection between a Google SketchUp model and a Power Project program. Yeah. Like, how do we stitch these two things together? To kind of almost
win the job.
Yeah.
To be like, this is how we're going to do it. And was it kind of like a wow moment for the client? And so is that project a seminal project in your career?
Definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely.
We share a seminal project. There you go.
Yeah, absolutely. And there are various examples of that. So that carried on, that, using that technology, digital process as a way of engaging with our clients and showing them the process that we go through and how their vision, their asset is going to be built from the ground up. And taking them through really technical detail about why the logistics matter so much, why we need to organize the site the way we need to organize it. Because on a 2D drawing, on a PowerPoint site, you can't really explain it very clearly unless you can spend hours and hours with a client. And obviously, sometimes you
want to visualize it and bring it to life.
A picture paints 1,000 words.
Yeah. And so you're at that stage, kind of at the outset of your contracting career. That's 2008, 9, 10, 11.
8, 9, yeah.
We're now in 2026. HPG becomes BAM. But in effect, your contracting career is committed to one brand, isn't it? Like you've been there for 25 years almost?
Well, nearly 20 years, yeah.
Nearly 20 years.
Yeah.
God, you see I don't do QS too much anymore, can you? My maths is all off. Cut that.
Nearly 20 years, yeah.
But so, when you just trying to frame the career here, you've reached senior management, did you kind of think, I've set my sights on, the role of strategy lead, for instance? Like, did you set your sights on the role of C-suite leadership? Did you think, I'm going to stay at this company? How do you arrive to today's position?
Yeah, so no is the simple answer. I didn't plan to stay at the business for that long. I think it happens organically. And what I found in an organization like BAM, what attracted me more than anything was its mission and purpose, which is to build environments that enhance people's lives. I thought, why wouldn't you want to work for a company that does that? And actually, the people in BAM, when I joined, the environment of innovation, thought leadership, the real talent that enables really complex stuff to be built day in, day out, where innovation happens down on site. Every day we're solving engineering challenges that can't be solved on a piece of paper. Yeah. That was really what's kept me here. And I think more than anything, it's the continuation of different types of challenges in your career that just opens doors, it opens avenues. I think to an extent, you've got to be open yourself to not being too rigid in forcing yourself down a route that you might find actually is a dead end.
And what would have, so if you and I, we've both ended up doing very different things, but you and I, let's go back to NLMBB, where we would have been, you were at a more mature stage in your career, but I guess we were both in relatively early stages of our contracting careers. I was at a subby.
Yeah.
I was probably assistant QS or maybe project surveyor. At that point, what was your role?
I was a planning something. Yeah.
How do you get from planning something to strategy lead at BAM? Because it doesn't feel like, if you'd asked me then, I'd have said commercial director. Where will I be in 10 years? Commercial director at a subby. It would have been my goal.
For me, it was challenging the leadership at the time to be innovative, to take on new ideas, to try different things, and just putting yourself out there, being brave. Put your head above the parapet. Be visible. Show that you're willing to learn. You're willing to try different things to improve the business, to improve our reputation, to improve the quality of what we do, to support the teams out on sites, to deliver what they do more efficiently, more effectively, engage with our clients in different ways.
And can I pause you there and ask, because again, theme of speaking to C-suite is I put my hand up and I put my head above the parapet. An example being chap who is now managing director in the company he was in. Seminal moment for him in his career was disaster project or two disaster projects, someone leaves. He puts his hand up and says, I'll do them. And kind of shoulders the burden, takes a huge amount of the problem off the table for, I guess, leadership, and then goes on to deliver a good work. So when you say, I would put my head above the parapet, is there something you can kind of point to where, because people listening to this might think, oh, there's a bad job, I can put my hand up for that. That's an example. What was it for you?
So this is relatively recently now. So back in 2018. So I'd been in that sort of planning and digital type work for a while, and we'd matured it to a point where BAM was sort of almost a leader in the industry around digital technology and how we were using it. And a regional director at the time, his name was Bruce Dixon, one of my best friends, a mentor of mine, said, we've got a problem with our business management system, which is sort of the foundations
I'll sort it out.
The foundations of how you operate as a business. Yeah. Right. These are the guiding principles, the rules that we use, the procedures, the processes that we go through day in, day out that make sure that we are compliant, keeps our business running smoothly. Yeah. It's out of date. It's all paper based. It's not been updated since God knows when. It all needs a rethink. And so I put two and two together. I thought, I know the business really well now. I've been here long enough. I understand that
you'd been there 10 years at that point.
Been there 10 years at that point.
And what was your role?
So at the time I was, I can't remember the title now. I think it was.
Were you kind of middle management?
Something, yeah. But it was more sort of a regional role. So this was kind of stepping into a Construct UK wide role, which was covering 7 regions, looking at not just within where I was working, but considering the broader impact of a business management system and how it can affect and how it can support a bigger business of something like 3,500 people.
And so there's this challenge, which you're not thinking, you're not solved. Can you go and solve this? But you're kind of either hearing the murmuring, seeing the murmurings, and at that point you put your hand up.
Yeah, and I'd complained about it in the past as well, that these processes are way out of date. These do not reflect the reality of how we deliver projects on site.
Yeah.
And, we had BSI audits, we had, we needed to be compliant to ISO 9001. Without that, you're going to struggle to find any customers. So we had a real challenge on our hands. So Bruce and I worked together, and we developed an idea around, why does it need to be paper-based? Why can't it be a digital solution? But the technology's there.
I like you, Prabhat.
The technology's there. I mean, back in 2018, it wasn't as advanced as it is now. There's no AI available to us. There was some manual graft in writing up these new procedures and processes. And I took on the challenge of leading that process, leading that program, to develop a new business management system.
Without at the front end a promise to anything. Just it's because I really like trying to put meat on the bones, context to these stories, because head above the parapet, you think, so what, right? But actually,
yeah,
how often are there systems in place in a business that you're working in that you think, oh, why are we doing that?
Are we doing this?
Yeah. And there's kind of one of two options there. It's kind of roll your eyes, go to the pub and moan about it, or roll your eyes, sort it out, and still go to the pub. But look, just see what, like, as in,
or you roll your sleeves up and get on with it and solve
exactly.
it.
And through the 20 odd years that you've been at BAM, I speak to a lot of QSs who, for financial reasons, will opt to kind of bounce every 2 or 3 years. Bounce. And they're taking each time like a nice 5-10% chunk, and it in many ways makes sense. What I fear for that as a strategy is at some point you have to make a home in a business. And my story personally was, before setting up C-Link, I stayed at 2 companies for 5 or 6 years, both. And in both, I felt I had built up great relationships and great credit in the bank to kind of, which then guides you in the way that you wanted to go, right? And so what are your reflections of the principle of bouncing around? And were there moments in your story at BAM where you thought, oh, I'm not sure?
Yeah, for sure. I think there's always moments in someone's career where you think, okay, I think I've done what I needed to do here and I can move on.
Yeah.
I think there's advantages to both.
Yeah.
You know, if you want to move around in a career and get different experiences, meet new people, build your network of professionals and new colleagues, new experiences, do that, because I think it's really valuable that people do that. Because when you move to different businesses, you take that learning, you take the experiences and you can apply them into a new organization. I think for me, staying in one place for a more prolonged period doesn't need to be 20 years, doesn't need to be 10 years, just a little bit longer than, let's say, 5 years.
It gives the room for a Bruce to say this, for you to know the business and for you to say, I'm going to stick my head above the parapet.
Absolutely.
As opposed to being like, who is that Bruce? Like, not quite having the relationships, not quite having...
Exactly. I think it builds your credit, as you say, it builds credit for you personally that you can then exchange for value. You know, you're able to apply value into the business in a different way. You're able to not just work in the business, but work on the business. And I've heard that so many times from people. And when you get to a point where you're starting to work on the business, that's when I think there's a step change in your thinking.
And that's where you are today.
That's where I am today. So that process that took me from doing a business management systems program, getting that implemented, all digital, using SharePoint, you know, probably one of the most basic Microsoft tools now, but still relatively sophisticated in what it does, to then being asked to go and lead a target operating model program for the UK and Ireland division, which was being formed back in 2021 to implement that new target operating model. That was a fascinating process in itself. And as part of that process, it kind of got me thinking. And whilst I was running that program, I was also doing an MBA on the side.
Okay.
So I was building my business knowledge, because my heritage, my family heritage, does come from business.
Mm-hmm.
My grandfather, you know, my great grandfather, he was a farmer, but nevertheless, there was a business behind that. Course. My dad himself was a business person. So there's a lineage of business in the DNA, let's say.
Yeah.
So it's always there, that entrepreneurial spirit.
Yeah. And so what does excuse me.
That'll be the gig that you went to last night.
That will be the gig that I went to last night. I shouldn't have told you that, should I? There you go. I did go to a gig last night. So you've thrown me now.
Sorry,
no, this is good. This is good. So describe to me then today, what, because it's unclear to me. If I know what a commercial director does, I know what an ops director does, what does the strategy lead for BAM UK and Ireland do? What's the end goal?
So the end goal is to enable the business to think long term about how it makes itself relevant and sustainable for the future. And I think we're in a place in construction and engineering in this country where some businesses are doing strategy really well, and you can see that they've established a long-term plan, and now they're executing on that plan.
Some contracting businesses.
Some contracting businesses, yeah, absolutely. And they are very successful at what they do, and you can see that in their results. You can see that in their perceptions in the market and the clients that they engage with. On the flip side of that, there are some businesses that are very project by project, and they're literally living paycheck to paycheck.
Can I ask a stupid question and ask, what are the signals to you for that? Because I personally, I mean, I'm not looking at company performance probably in the same way that you are, but I wouldn't be able to tell you the difference between a company that you see as up in shining lights and that project to project, hand to mouth.
I think that in our industry, you see some businesses that are very strong at growing revenue, top line.
Yeah.
And they've got double-digit revenue growth, and they're doing great guns, winning lots and lots of work. Those that are actually successful are the ones that outperform the market on the bottom line.
Yeah.
So the profitability. And those that are the most profitable are the ones with a long-term plan and a vision.
Which is you.
Which is us, and a handful of competitors. And, we can proudly say that in the last 4 years or so, we've really upped the damn game in the UK and Ireland to become one of the top 3 performing businesses.
For margin.
Yeah.
And
that's a deliberate choice.
And, okay, so this is good. So it's a deliberate choice.
To be very selective in where we're working.
And with whom?
With our, with a very small select number of clients that we want to build really long-term relationships with. Because similar to a career, you're talking about people that want to jump from company to company to company to company to gain experience. You see some contracting companies doing that with clients as well. They jump from one client to the next client to the next client. They don't build a legacy. They don't build a relationship where you can have a partnership. This is not just about the client giving us work. This is about BAM adding value to what the client's trying to achieve and their vision. And when you share a purpose, you share a vision, you share values, what better relationship is there?
No, 100%. And so as part of your role for strategy leadership, where you're kind of looking 3, 5, 7, 10 years ahead,
we're looking 10.
That is, and I'm guessing if we scale back 3, 5, 7, 10 years, which we could do in your career, it's kind of your role is how do we get better margins? Who are the people, and then who are the clients, and then what are the strategies to do that?
And what is the type of work that we want to do? What do we want to be known for?
And what does BAM want to be known for?
For building environments that enhance people's lives.
Okay.
Sustainable environments. This is, for us, this goes beyond just building an engineering project or building a school. This is about leaving a lasting legacy. This is about leaving the world in a better place than we found it.
Yeah, which is incredibly admirable. But you're coupling that with beating the market on margins, being like the elite in that elite band of margins. Sounds like you're being greedy. You've got the best of both worlds there. Like, how have you gone about trying to get the best of both worlds? Because it's definitely not easy.
No, it's not. So we started a process, and when we came together as a division, so we had 3 operating companies in Ireland. We had BAM Nuttall in the UK and Construct UK, and the 3 businesses came together to form a division. And we ran a process in 2023, which was the first time we'd ever created a divisional strategy.
Okay.
That looked at context. What is the market that we're actually working in here? Do we understand this market, and do we understand where the opportunities really are for growth? And so we did a lot of work with consultants to understand the market context, the economic context that we're working in. What does the next, let's just say 3 to 5 years look like? Let's not go beyond that just yet.
And when did you do this?
It was in 2023.
Okay, I was going to say, in 2020, you'd probably never have guessed what was about to unfold.
And there was a group strategy, a corporate strategy, which was about being more disciplined, being more selective. That preceded that, which is why we created a UK and Ireland division. Group had challenges in performance. We're a publicly listed business.
Yeah.
And so our shareholder expectation is that we are a predictable performing organization.
Yeah.
And we couldn't demonstrate that track record historically So shareholders are asking us just to be more predictable, be a solid, stable business.
Yeah.
And so it started really in around 2020, 2021, which is let's be more disciplined, let's be more focused about what it is that we're doing and be more in control. That led to 2023 to really understanding this division in the UK and Ireland. Where is it that we want to actually work? Where can we really advance our cause and advance our mission, but also do that alongside clients that share our vision for a sustainable future? So being selective in our markets, being selective in the types of projects we want to do, being very sharp and disciplined around risk. What is our risk appetite? And how do we make sure that the work we bring into our order book is done in a controlled way so that we build a quality order book with the right clients behind it? And we've just, it's just the basic stuff that you do in business. It's nothing highly complex, but doing it consistently allows us to deliver predictable results.
Yeah. With that end focus.
Yeah, absolutely. And so now my job is to build on that. So we've been doing that since 2024, 26. We're now looking at the next phase of our strategic period, which will build on that and use that solid platform that we now have to look at areas of growth. And again, be very disciplined, very deliberate in where we want to grow.
Yeah. And all makes a huge amount of sense. So many questions, I guess, as a former subcontractor to you. And where my mind often goes is my own subcontract experience. We've talked a lot there about how kind of building a predictable business, predictable model, kind of up the line, which makes absolute sense because that's kind of going to drive a lot of the success. How do you shape a strategy that then kind of talks to your supply chain? Is that within your remit as well? How have you gone about doing that?
So it's not directly within my remit, but it is certainly that, we have a procurement team that engage with our supply chain around supporting them, investing in that supply chain and making sure that we're protecting that supply chain, because it's in the last few years, certainly since the pandemic, our supply chain's been decimated.
Is that the feel?
Yeah. I think so. Certainly what I see. I see in the news all the time,
most insolvencies ever.
Yeah.
Year-on-year growth on that.
And it's just not sustainable. If you think about the scale of the challenge ahead of us in terms of renewing our infrastructure, renewing our public buildings, the schools, the hospitals, the prisons, every bit of infrastructure you look at in this country right now needs some sort of upgrade.
Renewal, yeah.
Right? The amount of skill and talent needed to do that is immense. And the challenge ahead of us is how do we protect the supply chain, the very fragile supply chain that's going to enable us to deliver all of that. Yeah. And our role, I think, as a tier one contractor is to make sure that we support them in the right way. We engage with the right supply chain. We ensure that we deliver together. I think this is the challenge here is that, this industry is very fragmented, and we know that. And it's a historical trend where isn't it? Construction is probably the biggest industry in this country.
Yeah, it's 7% GDP, isn't it?
It's massive. But the number of companies that operate in this space
293,000 subbies.
There you go.
Yeah. I guess it's, I'm completely with you. And, we speak to subbies at length through the business that we run, through the podcast. And the best subbies that we speak to are the ones who are doing exactly the same thing as you, where they are saying, you know what, no more of this. How are we going to grow our business? What's our strategy? Where do we want to be in 10 years? And who are the clients that are going to lift us up to be there? So it's marrying those two together where you kind of almost getting the cream of the crop. You're going to get the best projects, the best contractors, the best margins, the best subcontractors, and in like skimming that cream off the top, what are those projects like? Do you see what I mean? Because it's almost like, how do you build like a hyper sustainable business which has both up and down, everyone like gunning towards the same goal? So is there a similar kind of like push down the chain to try and identify those elite supply chain members?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. And for us, that is about delivering for our clients. You know, we're working with clients that have a long-term plan. We have a long-term plan. We want our supply chain to have a long-term plan so that we can deliver the vast amount of infrastructure needed for this country together. And Ireland as well. I mean, Ireland itself is a fascinating geography and an industry and construction there.
I was talking about my Irish family. So
you're
buttering me up here. Come on.
I love Ireland.
Yes, what a place.
Very dear to my heart. But again, the Irish context is very different to the UK as a market. You know, it's a much smaller geography, a much smaller community of contractors and suppliers. And so for us, building those relationships, building those ties, building those capabilities together is what's going to get us to deliver for our customers and clients, and actually for society.
100%. Right? Yeah, it goes back to that built
the end
environment.
user in all of this is the customer's customer.
And me.
Yeah.
Right? 100%. And I guess what I'd like to kind of explore with you, though, is like there is real thinking about long-termism. If you couple that with, you know, main contractor QS on site, subcontractor QS on site, and this is not a BAM thing at all. This is just an industry thing. A QS's KPIs are kind of there will be they will be talked up as multitude of different KPIs. There is kind of one KPI, which is what was your margin on your projects or on your packages. And I guess I'm interested to hear, because and this is something we've talked about at length as well, is how do you connect the business strategy of long-termism to the KPI of short-termism that a QS, kind of rightly so, is motivated by? Because that's what the QS, as ugly as it sounds, unless we're shifting that KPI narrative, that's what they're going to be focused on. So how do you land that message across, what is it, 600 QSs at BAM?
Something like that, yeah. Absolutely. For us, I think that's about culture in the organisation, that we are one division. Yeah, we are measured as a division, not as a project. Yes, your project will be successful, and we'll make sure that we have the rigour and the discipline to ensure that project is a success. But when it comes to KPI, the measure that we are looking for is at a divisional level. Yeah. You know, we are a successful division because our projects are successful.
The full 600.
The full 600 QSs. And it's that community, that sense of community around, it's not just you as an individual QS on your project trying to make the best margin you can. It's all 600 of you doing this together. And when you get them to work as a team, the innovation, the creativity, the thought process starts to mature. The culture in that team starts to improve, and the rigor and the discipline around commerciality starts to improve as well. So for us, it's culture, it's behavior, it's that work ethic that we're in this together. Yeah. For the long term.
Absolutely. And I mean, I think you more and more have to be with subbies, because
you do.
They can be hyper selective. And as I said, like the ones that are kind of outperforming are the ones who are being hyper selective and looking for those partnerships and those frameworks. So,
but it is an interesting. I mean, it's an interesting challenge generally in strategy. So, strategy for us is not a PowerPoint slide deck. You know, it's not a document that you write up and then it sits on a shelf and gathers dust. This is about delivery at scale.
But so that, I guess, is my question. And I can only go back to my experience with being on a project with you guys. This is not about my experience of what it was like being subcontractor for you as a main contractor, but I'm imagining my QS, still remember him quite well, on the other side, was so focused on his project and his packages that how do you, it's not a PowerPoint, but how does the strategy from you, and you're likely in head office, obviously going to sites and so on, but in head office, how does that actually make its way down all the way to that QS on site with me, who's one of 600? Because it's really hard. So how do you do that?
That's communication. And a lot of the times the strategy process itself is actually quite straightforward. The difficult part, and actually the more challenging part, is execution.
Yeah.
You
I
can
hear
have
you
a
on that
really,
100%.
you can really have a really, very glossy, really sharp strategy on paper. But if you can't execute it, what's the point? Right? So for us, it's about engaging people. It's about communicating the key messages in that strategy that resonate in a language that people on site understand and they can relate to. So when we talk about discipline, we talk about risk management, when we talk about operational excellence, strengthening operational excellence with strong processes, controls around how we execute, people understand that language and they can work within those parameters and those guardrails to ensure we protect our profitability. And that message has resonated over the last few years to a point now where we can consistently demonstrate margin performance, project results, and you can see that in our bottom line.
Yeah.
So strategy is nothing unless you can execute it properly. My job is not to just produce a PowerPoint slide deck. It's finding the right way to engage with people across the business, to land a message, to say, here's what we're going to be doing in the next 3 years, or 5 years, or 7 years, or 10 years.
And because on the 10 years point, you said something to me when we first chatted, which stuck with me, which was, I'll butcher this, but paraphrasing, your job is kind of thinking 10 years ahead. How do you go about doing that? With all of the uncertainties and supply chains and macroeconomics and how do you do it?
It takes time. I think you have to take time out to read, to listen, to learn about what's going on around the world and what's going to shape our future as an organization and our industry. So reading the news a lot, reading Financial Times, reading Construction Inquirer, all the places where people go to suss out what's actually going on, and then taking time to analyze it, not just at a surface level, but really get under the meaning of what's going on. What is the meaning of X? What's happening in Iran right now and the closure of the Strait of Hormuz? What is the meaning of that? What does that mean for us here? Not now, but in 10 years' time.
And do you kind of feel, again, this may be me talking to my own experience here, but do you feel that kind of strategy and leadership around strategy is relatively nascent in the UK construction industry?
I think, it is. It is. And I think there's more we need to do to connect, for example, government 10-year strategy around infrastructure to businesses operating in this industry to ensure that they have longevity in their plans to be able to deliver what the government needs are for public infrastructure. I think it's nascent because we're a very project by project industry.
Where's the next meal coming
from? And, we're low margin, high risk industry. That's the way we're perceived. That's actually the reality.
It's not a perception.
It's the reality. It's real life. So businesses can't afford to spend time and money on long-term planning. I think it's typically, yes.
And is that why it's nascent? Because it's quite an overhead to say we're going to go long-term here.
Yeah. But I think if companies take that time to invest in long-term planning, it then becomes easier for you to see what your journey is and how you're going to get there.
And it's that ROI over time, which you guys have now cultivated since 2021 or whatever, 2022, where you kind of said, we'll take the long-term view and we're no longer kind of project to project.
Exactly.
We're not one of those companies. This is how we operate.
And that means,
this is why.
That means making some tough decisions. And decisions around, look, we will in the short term shrink the business down.
I was going to say, were there, because it sounds great saying we're going to go after these clients and this is how we're going to work. Absolutely. And then someone says, what about the fixed costs we got each month? I guess there was a moment where it was just like, well, this is how, if we want that, there is a short-term impact.
There are compromises you have to make. Absolutely. There are tough choices. And it's those strategic choices that you have to make early to see the long-term benefit. Yeah. And part of my role is to facilitate that process of what those strategic choices are that ensures long-term survival.
And for you, as you kind of contemplate the decade ahead, usually I would never ask this kind of question because it's a bit much, but you're kind of thinking about this all the time. Like, what do you see as kind of the decisions that will define a successful contractor in the coming years?
Yeah, great question. I think there's so many different things that are happening in the world right now. So technology is the standout one for me. So artificial intelligence will have a big role to play in how this industry performs in the future. I think we have a chronic skills shortage in the industry that needs to be addressed urgently, I'd say.
But if that's a industry problem, how do you kind of strategize around that as a contractor?
For us, I think it's about being, again, very selective in how we build our order book so that we are focusing on the talent and skills needed to deliver what our clients actually want. Not spreading ourselves too thin, not trying to do everything for everyone.
Yeah.
Being very selective, being very disciplined in how we go about doing that, and then marrying that up with a strategic workforce plan that matches talent with demand.
No, that does make perfect sense. And so, just on the topic of AI and software, kind of topic close to my heart.
Clearly,
how do you kind of contemplate AI impacting the way that BAM works?
I think there's the obvious stuff around automation, process efficiency, doing stuff, the administrative stuff that AI could handle all day long. I think that's going to be a huge impact on our organization. I think the follow-on impacts of all of that sort of stuff is things like intelligence, the ability to train large language models, to develop your own large language models and data, to be able to inform you of where you could improve and how. More importantly for us, it's how. Don't tell me what I already know. The data, and a lot of the time, the data stuff that's being churned out of AI right now, it's kind of stuff that we know. It's not new intelligence, let's say. It's just on a sort of synthesized version, spitting it back out at you in a slightly different language. For us, it's using data, using intelligence that we have in the business, feeding that into a model that then really gives us a true insight into, okay, how are we going to move the business forward? I think it's going to have a significant impact on how we perform on our sites as well. So improved safety, improved quality, improved planning, procurement, all of that sort of stuff. I think it's going to have a wide range of impacts. But that said, I still think AI is in its infancy. It's in its embryonic stages, and we're only still, even AI experts are still saying we don't know what it's going to do. And we don't, in fact, know how it all works. AI is doing its thing. So for us, I think it's a case of seeing where it goes, developing an idea of where we could benefit from utilization of AI, and then build a strategy around, okay, if we're going to adopt this technology, where do we place it? How do we invest in it? In such a way that it doesn't harm our performance, our margin. It ensures that as an organization, we're able to deliver the products and services for our clients to the same level of consistency and quality that we have done to deliver a predictable result,
if not better, right? And so,
let's not derail the business because of AI.
Yeah, absolutely. And so, kind of as we wrap up, just you've had such a fascinating career, and like, what's really nice talking to you is, this is going to sound bad for all the commercial directors I've spoken to, but it's like it's a very different story. But kind of there are echoes and there are rhymes in everyone's story to positions such as yours. Just if you're talking to a young professional today, what should they focus on if they want to move to leadership?
I'd say 3 things. Get yourself out there, get yourself visible.
Head above the parapet. You can't do that from behind a screen, I'm sorry to say. And I think remote working from home is great at times,
because you need that time to focus, and you'll have personal commitments that you need to deliver on. But get yourself known,
Build the
be
relationships.
visible, build relationships, build your network. I think the other one is be disciplined. Be disciplined in executing really well. So a follow through.
Yeah.
Don't fail to follow through. If you commit to something, see it through to the end.
Yeah.
So if you take on a project, take on a program, stay with it. Make sure it's delivered to the way you want to see it delivered. And I think thirdly, be open and curious. Yeah. Take a look at the organization you're working in. Find ways to improve that business. So work on the business, not in the business. So even if you're working as a QS now, take a step back from your role a second. Think about the systems that you're working in, the systemic landscape that you're working in. Is this organization doing what it can to be the best that it can be?
Yeah, I agree. And you should be picking up the phone and calling C-Link and saying, revolutionise the way that we work. We shouldn't be doing this anymore.
That's an option.
That's a great plug.
You could start with just having a conversation with your manager and saying,
"Oh, come on, no, straight to me."
I think there's an opportunity to improve here, and I think here's how we can do this, and use that to grow your influence.
But starting from grow your influence. Starting from your 3 points, almost turning them the other way around. Point 3 was curiosity. You start from a position of curiosity.
Absolutely.
You then put your head above the parapet, and you're consistent. I always talk about consistency, right? It's such a boring.
It's so boring,
but if you're consistent, like you talk about trust, how is trust built? Through consistent delivery,
Absolutely.
right? So that one makes sense to me. What this is kind of quick fire, but not that quick fire. Just kind of habits or behaviors that you see that separate future leaders from the rest. And the way I like to frame this one is picture someone in your team. What's different about them to the rest of the team where you think they're kind of like your right-hand person? Just do you see what, like, who are the people and what are their characteristics?
Tenacity is definitely one of them. Being really tenacious is a great character trait to have. I think if you're developing as a leader, and I think leadership is a skill that can be learned, right? This is not something that you're born with. It's a skill that you can be trained to become a leader. And that's different to being a director. You can have directors that are terrible leaders, and you can have leaders that are not directors at all. I think the ability to lead and clear the path for those around you so that they can become leaders as well. So develop others around you. And for me personally, I enjoy mentoring people. I enjoy the process of engaging in an understanding of and listening to people about what are their challenges? What can I do to help you to succeed? And find ways to engage in those types of conversations, because it's, yes, you want to advance your own career, absolutely, and credit to you for doing that. But if you can do that and bring people with you on a journey, you start to build a different level of credibility that you don't get from a day job.
It's interesting because the one of the themes that has kind of come out through these conversations, and majority being commercial directors, managing directors, but is the theme of succession planning. And little old me kind of walked into these conversations before and kind of thought, succession planning, do people really think about people coming and taking their jobs? Like are people like innately just a little bit selfish where they think, well, I quite like being commercial director, so do I want to create an environment where Jane Doe can come and take my job? Like, is that actually something I want to be doing? But actually, through all these conversations, succession planning is kind of something which feels so intrinsic to what you, and because you're trying to create an amazing team, right? And it might be that maybe that person becomes so good that they actually have to leave for whatever reason, but effectively you're trying to build this amazing team so that succession can happen in your department. Because towards a commercial director like Mark, where you've got like 50 QSs or hundreds, right? How does that feel for you? How do you think about succession planning?
I don't think about succession planning, actually. I let the talent emerge. I think it emerges naturally and organically. I think what ultimately happens is people live their values. And when those values align with the organization's values of being resilient, of being reliable, taking ownership is a big one for me. Taking accountability for what you're delivering and what you're doing. When you see those traits start to come through in people's careers and what they do day to day, those leaders emerge. You don't even need to plan for that. They just emerge. And at that point, you can have the right conversation about what their path could be for their future, and allow them to explore opportunities with you. Don't force them down a route to say, right, you're here now, and now you're going to go through these steps to get to X, Y, Z. That's an option, but for me, and I've enjoyed my organic route that I've got to where I have.
Quite the route.
Yeah, it's different, and I've enjoyed that process. For me, it's about that organicness that allows people to expand their understanding of the business.
Well, your story is almost like the perfect example of organic growth, isn't it? Because architects via
different routes and digital roles and business management systems, and then doing an MBA and now in strategy role. So having that breadth of understanding, not being too narrow, and not don't close yourself off to opportunities, I think is absolutely essential for young people now. Because I don't think in this world now, I don't think there is such a thing as a straight career path from A to B. Particularly
with everything that's about to happen with AI and
exactly. You're going to have to retrain, reskill yourself at some point in your life. And it's up to you to have the flexibility and agility to go after the next opportunity, the next challenge. I think part of it is look for challenges. Don't look for titles. Look for challenges. And look for difficult challenges. Don't go for the easy stuff. Because it's the difficult stuff that builds resilience, that builds character,
and
that builds leadership
trust
and builds trust. And you're not going to get it 100% perfect. You're not going to achieve 100% results every time. It's not going to be perfect, but the business will look at you and say, you're brave, that you've given it a go, and you've done your best. And for a lot of businesses, that's what matters.
And for a lot of leaders with their team, that's what matters as well, right?
I'd rather have imperfect results with someone that's given 100% than someone that's given 100% but actually not delivered what was needed.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. And I have thoroughly enjoyed talking to you, Prabhat. And what's funny, what I'm always charmed by construction is how small an industry it is, and that you and I shared a construction site, 15 years ago.
Absolutely.
We
probably sat next to each other.
Yeah. Never knew each other, but here we are back together. It's been great talking to you. Thank you so much for coming on the show.
Yeah, thank you very much for having me.
Awesome.